we're going to start with something a little lighthearted today before we get into the good stuff. So, that's my dog. That's Winston.
Get over here. You ready for a haircut? Oh, not yet. No, he's singing it. And look at it. Oh, he's a whole new dog. What a beautiful dog. Yes. So happy. There you go. Oh, yes. So good. So good. Look at that beautiful dog. He's a new dog.
Yeah, we got a new dog.
Sit. No, he still doesn't know.
Sit.
Now, I'll tell you one thing. He might be able to win a world's ugliest dog competition. He could give Sam, that Chinese crested, a run for his money. I was trying to encourage the kids to think he looks a little better. He looks good. You could really see the muscles and the definition in his body, but the groomer may have gone a little hard on the clipper. He does look much more comfortable. It's hot in Florida. He was getting stuff stuck in his fur, poo-poo in the end side of his fur. Oh, yeah, but it's going to take some getting used to because Winston is blind, and you could see... Do I want to bring that back up? Whatever. He's blind, and you can really now see the blindness in his eyes. People think he was blind because the fur was covering his eyes. He's blind because he was born with lenticonus or lentiglobus. Lenticonus? Some eye thing. That's why he was a rescue. They couldn't find him a family, and we're like, well, we already got a half-paralyzed dog who craps and pisses all over the house. What's another special needs dog that, hey, at least he's housebroken, so it's good. Alrighty. We've got a show today. It's going to be very Canadian-centric, starting a little early because we're coordinating with Caryma Saad, who's one of the two authors of... what's the name of the memo? Hold on one second. I don't want to... Basically, it's breaking... It's called Hategate, people, and apparently people want Hategate to trend in Canada. I say these organizations, much like the... what was it, like the People's Liberations Army typically are not about people's liberation. Whenever a communist country really wants to cloak its communism or its tyranny, they call themselves like the People's Republic or the People's Democracy of whatever. In Canada, much like in the States we've got the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which oddly enough engages in more defamation than they protect, allegedly, in my humble opinion. We've got something in Canada called the Canada Anti-Hate Network, CAN, and they look into online extremism. They look into online hate. And they tackle online hate, even if it means manufacturing the hate for the purposes of tackling it. And Caryma Saad and Elise Hadigan, we're going to get how to pronounce her last name, I say Hadigan, produced an 86-page report, breakdown, detailing how the Canadian Anti-Hate Network is itself the purveyor of disinformation and the purveyor of hate that the government then subsequently relied on in order to create enemies where there were none, so they could invoke emergencies acts where there was no need. And it's like one big, I don't want to use the term circle jerk, but that's what it is. Like one person feeding fake information to another who then finances those people to provide the fake information so they can then launder it off to whomever they need to in order to justify whatever fabricated crisis they financed that never existed in the first place. Okay, Caryma is in the backdrop. Let me make sure that we're live everywhere. So, by the way, order of the day. We're live here 10 o'clock. McKenzie's coming on probably around 11 o'clock. I might end this stream and then go pop in with Eric Hunley at noon if I can, but I'm live with the quartering. Jeremy at 1 o'clock, so busy day. And without further ado, I got Caryma. Oh, look at... Oh, I like the shirt that she's got on. We did not plan this, people, but it's funny. All right, Caryma, I'm bringing you on. 3, 2, 1. Look at this. We match, except you've got Hategate and I got Viva Fry. Oh, that's too funny. Caryma, how are you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. And yourself?
Good. Before I go any further, I'm going to make sure that the audio is good. We're live on Rumble. Are we live on Locals, where we should be streaming as well? We good here? Yeah, we're matching. You know what? I actually have red frame glasses that I could really put on if we want to do this. Okay, Caryma, you've been on only once before. It was a shorter segment. It was the first time we had met digitally. We subsequently met in person. For those who don't know who you are, who are you?
So my name is Caryma Saad. I am a Toronto-based lawyer, and now I guess I can call myself an investigative journalist. I've been documenting the protest circuit in Ontario for almost 3 years at this point, which involves being boots on the ground and just checking out what is happening. I was at the convoy for the full duration of it, and I've sort of stayed on that beat, and that is what brought me to collaborating with Elisa Hadigan to produce Hategate.
What year bar? I know I asked you this the last time. What year bar are you?
I was called in 2016, and I've been practicing on my own since 2017. My actual law practice it's primarily housing, eviction based, with a cannabis niche and a small criminal practice.
Okay, very cool. 2016, young as anything. Now that is what year are we in? 2016. So that's like 7 years. And then you get into journalism, or what we call journalism, or just documenting reality. I don't think did we run into each other at the convoy?
I saw you a few times, so I have footage of you. So I might pop up on your live stream somewhere, but we didn't actually interact.
Was I good in the footage that you have of me?
For sure. You were talking to some of your fans and just describing your own trajectory. In fact, I think you were giving one guy advice on how to monetize his content.
Yes. Well, there is. In order to be independent, you have to be independent. And I remember not seeing you there because I don't remember seeing you there, but I remember seeing your footage. And what I thought was interesting about your footage, based on what your online persona, for lack of a better word, is that it seemed even-handed in that it didn't hide embarrassing or prejudicial stuff from one side or the other. And I remember predicting at one point in time that was going to get you into trouble with one side, because I call it my own bias. I think one side does not like exposing their own foibles more than the other side. I say one side dislikes exposing their own foibles more than the other side, but maybe that's just my own bias. And then, okay, look, I'll bring up one thing just so people can really see who you are. You were at that protest where we saw each other over the summer. You were the one, and you'll give credit where other credit is due, who really broke. I knew the guy was a liar, Joel Harden, and you came with the receipts. But this is what I think is one of the better videos that illustrates your patience and your recklessness, if I can say that. First of all, it's Matt Damon. I didn't know Matt Damon was at protests. This is Joel Harden. This is a guy pointing an emergency ear buzzer inches from your face. I love that look. Okay, so you document the protests, much to the dismay of some who might consider your political allies, or allies who I don't know how you fit in between the left and the right and whatever. How is that environment for you, just to walk that line?
I mean, I think it's kind of a false binary, this left-right. For me, what drives me is, what are the facts on the ground and how does that fit into reality? So I have opinions on issues, and I observe tactics, and I try not to be overly heavy-handed with my commentary, which is something I've evolved as I went along, simply because, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And so I have focused on being a lens for people, or a mirror, or, whatever metaphor we want to use. But it is a curious phenomenon to have extreme elements on either side of this spectrum really unhappy with my presence. And especially so because if we are talking my actual politics, I tend to be left-leaning on issues. So the strong reaction from people who frame themselves as anti-fascists or defenders or guardians, that has been something to work through. And I can't say that I have a resolution at this point, apart from the fact that I keep going and keep exercising my own freedoms and civil liberties. Because I think underscoring all of this, right, we have division between civilians, and that is fomented by people who stand to benefit from that. And it's all a distraction from what I see as the core issue, which is how we relate to the institutions that govern us and what laws are being passed that affect our ability to be sort of free citizens.
Now, I like the answer, and some people will call it waffling, others are going to call it nuanced. I agree with the dichotomy, the false dichotomy, and I only use like the left versus the right as a oversimplification. I think the more nuanced breakdown might be I've reduced it to the blue pill and the red pill, or the black pill, which is not ideological, but rather just sort of observational. And I'm not trying to pin you down on an answer, but I'll ask you the question because I've lived through the experience myself. Where do you feel you've covered both sides? Like you've been on the Antifa side, documenting, not supporting, and you've been on what they would call the furthest of the far right side, I guess, like the trucker convoy, the education, not indoctrination side of things. In your experience, where have you felt more intimidated with violence, with psychological pressure? On the side of and I'll just use these terms, the rainbow flag side of the protest, or the Canadian flag side of the protest. Where have you felt more or less comfortable?
It's been a journey. So, if I'm comparing sort of an overall average, I would say that the tendency on the right, if we're using that phrasing, it is less exclusionary in the sense that there's no expectation or a reduced expectation of adherence to every single point, right? There's not like, you don't have to be in perfect lockstep. There's still infighting on issues and a degree of groupthink, but there's a bit more, ironically, tolerance for kind of, well, you agree with us on this and not that, but that's fine. You can still sit with us. On the other side of the spectrum, I found it to be a bit more rigid and more, how do we say, the projection of expectations, which are arbitrary at times, including the idea that we don't talk to the other side, which I can't accept that. Just as a lawyer, part of what I do, what I've been trained to do, is speak with people who I disagree with, who I may vehemently disagree with, who I may dislike, but you nonetheless get together at the table. Sometimes it has to be adjudicated by a third party, but often things resolve just by discussion. It's overly simplistic to say that all of the issues we're facing in today's society can be debated away. I don't think that's true. But I do believe that the mental shortcuts that we take, where we affix labels and are careless about doing that, and in particular, the purity spiral on the left that ends up being exclusionary because you're constantly shaving away from sort of the group of people who are deemed acceptable. So it's the opposite phenomenon as you see on the right. Where have I felt more intimidated? I was like swarmed a couple of times during the convoy. That was frightening. But I've also been swarmed at like library drag story times by people who are purporting to support that event. I've been smeared on either side. I've had lies about me spread on either side. I think that it tends to be a bit more hurtful and insidious when it comes from the left, simply because that is where most of my leanings would find themselves to some degree. And so that rejection, where it is based on fantasies and fabrication, has been very frustrating.
All right, very interesting. Now we're going to move this over to Rumble to get into the hate gate, and all I'll say is the bad behavior when I was at the convoy. You'd see heckling. You'd see some people heckling CNN, calling them names, swearing, etc. That was about the worst that I saw there. I just, in terms of my experience, I felt more intimidated in interviewing the counter-protesters than I ever did, albeit one saw me as an ally, the other one saw me as an enemy. But I genuinely think, I don't know if you saw the video of those neo-Nazis protesting on a bridge in Florida. I have a feeling they would have been more open to me asking them hard questions than the counter-protesters in Ottawa, but maybe that's just my own stupidity and naivety. Okay, I'm giving the link to Rumble, everybody, and now we're going to get into Hategate and the, call it a freaking, what's the word? An oeuvre in English? Oh,
An opus?
An opus.
I'm calling it a manifesto. Part manifesto, part...
don't call it a manifesto. That has a little too much to it. All right, come on over to Rumble, everybody. Going to end it on YouTube now. Caryma doesn't change anything around. See you there. And then this will be